who they are has been shaped by who we are. In introducing ourselves and building that relationship, we're helping them understand who they are too.
And I think that's where the treaty, peace and friendship,
yeah.
comes into play.
People so often emphasize the peace part of the treaty. They forget the friendship part of the treaty. And the friendship part is really important because that's really the fun part. Mm-hmm. Like, that relationship is really valuable.
That's the relationship building process, right? And it's a responsibility on both or all groups within Mi'kmaq or in other territories to come up with that same formula that it's based on relationship building. I agree.
And there are barriers to relationship building. And some learners in my class feel guilty when they start learning about the history of colonialism. They feel personally responsible for it. And I try to explain to them that this is not super valuable. Like, being overwhelmed with guilt does not help you make any social change. It's actually preventing you from making change. And so we talk a bit about how do you emotionally process upsetting information? How do you emotionally process the discovery that, for instance, that residential schools have damaged Indigenous people? And perhaps for some settler learners, maybe their families have been involved in that process. We're certainly all socially implicated in that process. And I also emphasize that they have benefited from colonialism. But then I also have benefited from colonialism as an Indigenous person with white skin privilege. People treat me frequently as if I'm a settler. So I get both the benefits and many of the problems and issues that arise from that. So it's not easy that you can separate the issue into good guys, bad guys. It's just a bunch of guys.
Yeah. And that's a good way to, I think, sum up the idea that we all have a responsibility, but we all can assume a certain sense of responsibility, but that's a process. And it's part of relationship building according to that part. Are there any final thoughts that you would like to add on to what we're trying to do here about the Indigenous Health course and what we're trying to do here at Dalhousie, or in post-secondary education, I guess?
Well, I think on a personal note, the experience of teaching at Dalhousie has really given me lots of hope, because before I would only encounter the problems. I would only see our colonial assumptions taking place in a service environment, or I would only hear about a racist encounter with someone in a hospital setting. And when you're only getting the bad news, it can feel like nothing will ever change. But working with students or working with learners at Dalhousie, the learners in my class are very excited and very interested in the issues. I don't see the same dismissal that I used to see when I was a young person going to school. And they're committed to making changes. These are learners who are going out of their way to get involved in political issues. They're protesting environmental racism. They're connecting up with Indigenous communities and trying to support issues that matter to both groups. One of the things I really like about teaching, my students are critically engaged with the world. I've been a little nervous initially, actually, because people who taught university sometimes had bad experiences, and so friends would tell me, nobody does critical thinking anymore. Everybody just worries about their marks, and that's not my experience at all. The learners in my class are engaged with the issues. They're interested in social justice. They want to have the skills to understand the issues that they see, that they encounter. They want to have the ability to make the world a better place. And they have a very different attitude toward difference than I expected they would. There's an openness. Maybe it's the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Maybe it's seeing things in the media. I'm not really sure what made the change, but I don't immediately see resistance. I thought I might have to explain that racism exists, that colonialism exists, that they're bad things, that they have a negative impact on people's health and people's well-being. But people come to class already knowing that. The learners in my classes, anyway, they've lived life.